I was just about to fulfill my lifelong dream, traveling in the $45,000 trailer I'd finally bought when my son-in-law called unexpectedly, "Leave that travel trailer for my wife and me. Your destination is the retirement home. I'll take you there tomorrow." I was stunned by the demand from my daughter and son-in-law. They will regret this. The salesman's handshake was warm, but the weight of the keys told me it was real. $45,000 from a retirement account. I'd built one careful deposit at a time, and now a cream and bronze horizon vista sat under the Phoenix sun. I let myself picture red rock horizons I had only circled on maps. Outside, I called my daughter. "Lena," I said when she picked up, "I did it. I bought the trailer." Silence stretched. Not the breathless kind that means joy is loading, but the cool kind that measures and subtracts. "How much?" 45, I said. "It's a clean unit. I've been saving for—" "That's a lot," she cut in. "You could have spent that more wisely." I stared over the dealership roofs. "I thought you'd be happy for me." "I have to go. Brian just got home. We'll talk later." The call ended at 2 minutes and change. That's what my dream was worth, a price check and a dial tone. I drove home with the keys burning my palm. The house waited quiet. I made a sandwich, carried it into the trailer, and spread maps across the dinette. Route 66 stitched one way, green parks dotted another. I traced a line toward Sedona, but my mind kept circling Lena's words. "You could have spent that more wisely." By night, the maps were folded along their original creases. One light in the kitchen, one in the driveway. It didn't arrive. At 8:30, an engine I didn't recognize idled at my curb. I went to the window and saw a black sedan. The front door opened without a knock, my mistake. I rarely locked it, and my son-in-law stepped into my kitchen. "Evan," he said. "Not good morning, not congratulations. We need the trailer for a couple weeks. Family vacation. We'll drop you at a retirement place on the way if that helps." I waited for the laugh that would make it a joke. It didn't come. He was already scanning the counter, already reaching for my key ring by the coffee maker. The horizon fob glinted in his fingers. "Brian," I said, keeping my voice level, "that's mine. I bought it yesterday." He gave the keys a little swing. "Lena told me. 45 grand for something you're not going to use much anyway. Be practical." At my age, I almost said, "He said it for me, shoulders lifting." "Yeah, at your age." The words landed harder than I expected, not because of the number, but because of the drawer he was trying to push me into, stored quiet out of the way. "You can't just take it." "We're family," he said. "We borrow things." He was halfway to the door. "Thanks for understanding. We leave in the morning." He was younger and quicker, and the keys were already in his pocket when the door clicked shut. His engine murmured, then faded. I stood there with a dish towel in my hand, like a prop from a life where people asked before they took. The anger that came wasn't hot. It was cold and precise, the kind that knows where the folders are. I walked to my bedroom, opened the top drawer, and pulled out the second set the dealer had handed me. Always keep a spare. I set them on my desk and looked at them until they didn't feel like a consolation prize. 35 years selling insurance had taught me 3 things: read everything, document everything, and never assume blood means fairness. By 10, my desk was a grid: the purchase receipt, the title, the registration, the insurance declarations page. I called an attorney I trusted, Dana Morales, who had guided me after my wife passed and kept my tone even. "Dana, I'd like to update my will today." Her calendar was packed until the word urgent entered. By 2, I was in her office, suit and tie, because presentation helps the truth do its work. Dana read my existing will, everything, to Lena, and looked up at me. "Are you sure?" "I am," I said. "Primary beneficiary, the Arizona Veterans Relief Fund. My daughter receives $1 specified. 2 paralegals witnessed." The notary stamped. My pen moved steady. When we finished, Dana slid 3 signed copies across the desk. "Keep these safe," she said. "I'll retain the original." I walked out with a folder and a boundary I should have set years ago. Back home, I unlocked the trailer with the spare keys, climbed in, and sat in the driver's seat where the whole country still waited. I opened the glove compartment where anyone would look for the registration. I laid 1 copy of the new will on top of the manuals. I didn't hide it. I wanted it found. I'd watched my daughter shift from concern to calculus, and I'd watched her husband help himself to my keys while talking about a retirement home like it was a bus stop. If they were going to treat me like a line on a ledger, they could read the ledger. Evening slid across the desert. I brewed coffee I didn't need and stood at the window that framed the trailer. I could feel the shape of tomorrow, the sedan, with a second car behind it. The choreography of vacation, the way excitement makes people forget to be decent. My part would be simple, not a shout, not a scene, just 4 words timed for maximum truth. I slept badly and woke early. At 8:15, the sedan rolled up silver SUV behind it. Out came Brian, then Lena. The kids tumbled from the back seat, all energy and questions. No one knocked. Brian unlocked the trailer with the keys he had taken and did his inspection, then waved them forward like a tour guide. When he was done, he raised his voice for the neighborhood. "Thanks for the rig, Evan. Might send you a postcard." I didn't move. I watched them buckle in and pull out. I watched the space they left behind. Then I set my mug down, picked up my phone, and checked the clock. 2 hours would put them far enough west on Interstate 10 that turning around would cost them a morning. I made breakfast, washed the pan, dried it, and put it back because order is a way to refuse chaos. At 10:27, I opened a text, typed 4 words, and pressed send. Check the glove compartment. I kept waiting. Then I set the phone on the table and waited for it to ring. The coffee had gone cold when my phone began to vibrate. Once, twice, then constantly buzzing across the table like a living thing trying to escape. First Brian, then Lena, then both again. I let it ring. 3 minutes later, the house phone started. I unplugged it. By the time I checked the screen, there were 42 missed calls. They had read it. The will I'd placed neatly on top of the manuals now sat in Brian's shaking hands somewhere along Interstate 10. I imagined the moment him opening the compartment to check for registration, his grin fading as he saw my signature and the line that left Lena exactly $1. I could almost hear him snap at her. "What is this supposed to mean?" That was the beginning of the unraveling. At 10:45, there were 80 missed calls. I powered the phone off, slid it into the desk drawer, and let silence reclaim the house. The space in my driveway where the trailer had stood looked strange, like a pulled tooth. But I wasn't empty. I was deliberate. I gathered the papers I'd laid out the night before: bill of sale, title, insurance declaration, my driver's license photocopy, and the photographs I'd taken of the VIN plate. All proof that the Horizon Vista belonged to one person, me. Then I made a call that would turn my calm into their panic. The Scottsdale Police Department's non-emergency line picked up after 2 rings. "Officer on duty," a woman said. "My name is Evan Brooks," I answered evenly. "I need to report an unauthorized removal of my property, a recreational vehicle purchased 6 days ago. I have full documentation." She transferred me to an officer named Norton, who spoke with the practiced calm of someone who'd heard every version of family chaos. "Sir, do you have proof of ownership?" "Yes," I said. "And I know where it's heading west on Interstate 10. They told me California." He asked a few more questions, clicking keys, entering data. When we finished, he said the words I'd been waiting for. "Given the value, Mr. Brooks, this qualifies as a felony. Highway Patrol will locate the vehicle. If it's not returned, an arrest warrant can follow." "Understood. Would you like an officer present when it's returned?" "No," I said. "I just want my property back." When I hung up, the weight of calm felt heavier than anger. Procedure was colder, but it never missed. 2 hours later, Officer Norton called again. "Mr. Brooks, Highway Patrol located your vehicle about 70 miles west of Phoenix. The operator's been informed of the theft report and is returning it to your address." Was there any trouble, I asked. Some resistance at first. But once we explained the title shows you as the sole owner, he decided cooperation was wiser. I thanked him, ended the call, and went to the window. The sun had turned the asphalt to a mirage. My coffee, untouched, was now a mirror of brown silence. At exactly 2 in the afternoon, I saw it, my Horizon Vista, turning onto the street, followed by Brian's black sedan. The trailer braked too sharply before rolling into the driveway. 30 seconds of stillness. Then doors slammed. Brian's face was red anger, sun, or both. Lena's eyes were swollen, mascara smudged. The kid stayed in the back seat motionless behind tinted glass. He stormed across the concrete until he stood 10 feet from my porch. "You humiliated us," he shouted. "Police pulled us over like criminals in front of our children." I didn't raise my voice. "You took my property without permission. That's theft." "We're family," he barked. "You don't call the cops on family." I held his gaze. "You don't steal from family." For a second, I saw his fists clench, his jaw work. Part of me almost hoped he would swing. Assault on a senior citizen would have made the record airtight. But Lena caught his arm first. "Please, Dad," she said, tears breaking her voice. "The kids are terrified. Why are you doing this?" "To us," I asked quietly, "or to you?" She froze. "I'm your daughter. I told you about my dream. You told him. He took it. He's my husband. He made a mistake. Can't you forgive one mistake?" I stared at her for a long time. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending it didn't happen. Brian's tone dropped to a hiss. "You think you're clever, changing your will, calling the cops. We'll fight it. We'll have you declared incompetent. Everyone will see what you've become." There it was, the next move, predictable. I extended my hand palm up. "The keys," I said. He hesitated, every muscle in his face tightening. Then, reluctantly, he reached into his pocket and dropped the warm metal into my palm. I closed my fingers around it, turned without another word, and walked inside. The lock clicked behind me like a punctuation mark. Through the blinds, I watched them stand in my driveway for a minute longer. Lena sobbed into her hands. Brian stared at the trailer as if willing it to vanish. Then he grabbed her arm and led her back to the car. They left without looking back. The horizon vista gleamed under the afternoon light, returned but changed. It wasn't a symbol of freedom anymore. It was proof. Proof of what they thought they could take, proof of how wrong they were. I poured out the cold coffee, rinsed the cup, and set it in the rack. Tomorrow they'd follow through on their threat. Tomorrow there'd be papers. I was ready. That night I drafted a list, dates, actions, witnesses, because documentation, not rage, wins wars. I slept with the lights off and the trailer key on the nightstand, a small, heavy reminder that peace must sometimes be enforced. When dawn came, a courier rang my doorbell with a thick envelope stamped Whitman and Associates Attorneys at Law. Inside, petition for determination of incapacity. Filed by my own daughter. Claim Evan Brooks, age 63, exhibits diminished capacity to manage his financial affairs. Grounds included impulsive purchases and erratic behavior toward family members. In other words, buying my own trailer and protecting it from theft. I set the document on the counter beside my mug and looked at the empty driveway where their car had been yesterday. They had escalated. So would I. I picked up my phone and called Dana Morales again. "Dana, I said they filed it. I want to meet this afternoon." She hesitated only long enough to open her calendar. 2:00. "Make it 1:30, I said. I'll bring everything." While the rest of the neighborhood watered lawns and planned weekends, I gathered my next arsenal: bank statements, investment records, tax filings, performance reviews from my 35 years in insurance, and the results of my last full physical, blood pressure, cholesterol, cognitive tests, all normal. I stacked them neatly into 3 folders labeled Competence, Judgment, History, because this was no longer about a trailer. It was about respect. They wanted to brand me helpless. I would answer with evidence so thorough it would burn through their lies like sunlight through paper. By the time I reached Dana's office that afternoon, the Arizona heat had turned the parking lot into a shimmering mirage. I walked in wearing the same gray suit I'd worn to client meetings for 30 years. The receptionist looked up and recognized the expression most people mistake for calm. It wasn't calm. It was control. Dana met me at the door to her glass-walled office. "They filed it fast," she said. "They always do when they're scared," I replied, handing her the petition. She read in silence, the only sound the faint hum of the air conditioning. When she finally looked up, her eyes had the sharpness I remembered from our first case together years ago when I was still selling policies and she was just starting her own firm. "This is aggressive," she said. "They're accusing you of mental incompetence based on one purchase and a police report. That's not evidence. That's retaliation." "That's all they have," I said, "but we'll make sure it costs them." Dana smiled faintly. Good. Then let's build your defense before they even start. For the next 3 hours, we worked like a pair of auditors dissecting lies. She reviewed every document I'd brought: tax returns, investment portfolios, mortgage records, medical evaluations, all organized, dated, and labeled. I'd spent my entire career proving accountability on paper. Now those habits were my armor. When she finished the first pass, she said, "Evan, you don't need to defend yourself. You need to demonstrate. There's a difference. We'll have you evaluated by 2 doctors, one general practitioner, one neurologist, both independent. We'll get their reports on the record before the court appoints anyone. That way, when this hearing happens, it's not your word against theirs. It's medicine against manipulation." "Do it," I said. Over the next 10 days, I turned my life into a case file. Doctor visits, lab results, cognitive tests, memory assessments, reflex checks. Both physicians found what I already knew: nothing wrong with my mind, just a mild irritation that people I'd once trusted thought they could fake my decline for money. Each report ended the same way: patient demonstrates sound judgment and full capacity to manage personal and financial affairs. I dropped both sealed envelopes on Dana's desk the following Tuesday. She opened them, scanned the pages, and nodded. "They just lost half their case without realizing it," she said. 3 weeks later, the hearing date arrived, a Monday morning, in the Maricopa County Courthouse. I woke early, shaved, and put on my best tie. The trailer keys stayed in my pocket like a small reminder of how this had begun. Dana met me in the courthouse lobby, her heels clicking against polished stone. "They brought a new lawyer," she said quietly. Whitman dropped them. Probably saw the reports. At the far end of the hall stood Lena and Brian. She looked smaller than I remembered. He looked furious red from the neck up. Their new attorney couldn't have been older than 30. Good inexperience favors the prepared. When the judge entered, Catherine Rhodes, a woman with a reputation for cutting through nonsense, everyone stood. The young lawyer began his argument with a tremor in his voice. "Your Honor, Mr. Brooks has displayed erratic behavior, including altering his will, calling police on family, and—" The judge raised a hand. "Counselor, changing one's will is not erratic. It's legal. Nor is contacting law enforcement when property is taken. Do you have any medical evidence of cognitive impairment?" The lawyer shuffled papers. "Not at this time, Your Honor." "Then this hearing is over." The gavel struck once sharp, decisive, final. Lena's mouth fell open. Brian's hands clenched so tightly his knuckles turned white. I almost pitied them, almost. Outside the courtroom, Dana exhaled. "That's it. Petition denied. The restraining order we filed remains active. They can't step foot on your property." I nodded slowly. "Then it's done." "Legally, yes," she said. "Emotionally, that's a different system." We stepped into the sunlight. For the first time in weeks, I felt the heat without bitterness. The world had kept moving while I was busy defending what was already mine. That evening, I sat in the trailer with the windows open. The air was warm, smelling faintly of dust and metal. The maps were still folded in the cabinet above the table. I hadn't looked at them since the day I first bought this thing, the day I called my daughter expecting pride and got judgment instead. Winning in court didn't bring joy. It just confirmed what I'd known deep down: love without respect is just sentiment dressed up as family. I made a fresh pot of coffee the way I always did when my thoughts were too loud and stood at the window. The trailer's reflection shimmered faintly in the glass. For all its shine, it had become a symbol of something much darker, a mirror of how easily people you raise can turn into strangers when inheritance enters the conversation. The next morning, I woke to another envelope waiting at my door. A legal courier again. This time, the letterhead was different. Whitman and Associates no longer appeared. Instead, it was Patterson and Green. Inside was a single-page offer: withdraw the restraining order. Restore Lena as beneficiary, and we will drop the incompetency claim permanently. No apology, no admission, just terms as if they were negotiating a business contract, not the remains of a relationship. I didn't even finish reading it before calling Dana. "They're still playing games," I said. She sighed. "They'll keep trying until you prove they have something to lose." I stared out at the trailer again, that same quiet machine that had started all this. "Then maybe it's time they learn what losing really means." "What are you thinking?" she asked. "I'm thinking it's time to close every door they think is still open. By the end of the day, we had started Phase 2 reclaiming control. Dana reviewed my estate documents and discovered something I had forgotten: the house deed I'd signed 3 years ago, transferring ownership to Lena as a living gift after my wife died. She looked up from the file, eyebrows raised. You realize this can be revoked, right? Arizona law allows it if the recipient shows gross ingratitude. I remembered the words, "You don't need that, we'll drop you at a retirement home." I remembered her silence while her husband said it. I'd say that qualifies, I told Dana. Her smile was small but dangerous. Then let's make sure the court agrees. She began typing a motion to revoke the gift deed and reassign all insurance beneficiaries. Every keystroke was a line of defense turned into offense. Once this is filed, she said, your daughter and her husband won't just lose access to your assets. They'll have to live with the record, the legal acknowledgement that their greed destroyed their own inheritance. I nodded slowly. Perfect. That night, I sat on my porch as the desert cooled. The stars were sharp above the Phoenix skyline, the kind that make you feel both small and infinite at once. Somewhere out there, Lena and Brian were probably drafting their next move. But I'd already written mine. In the war between love and respect, I'd finally learned the rule no one tells you sometimes: to protect what matters, you have to stop being the forgiving parent and become the quiet storm they never saw coming. Tomorrow, the paperwork would be filed. Tomorrow, they'd learn that when you try to take everything from a man who built his life on reading the fine print, you should have read the fine print yourself. The documents were ready. Dana laid them out on her desk, her tone all business. Here's the revocation of the house deed. 3 beneficiary changes for your life insurance and an affidavit of ingratitude citing 4 incidents: the theft of your trailer, the retirement home comment, the false incompetency petition, and their threats. Each line was a nail sealing the coffin of their entitlement. Sign here, she said. I signed without hesitation. The pen glided steady. When you've been betrayed by the people who should have protected your dignity, hesitation feels like weakness. Dana's assistant notarized every signature and gathered the papers. Once these are mailed, it's done, Dana said. She'll get the notice in 48 hours. Good, I said. Let her read what her silence cost. By the time I got home, my phone was vibrating nonstop. Lena, then Brian, again and again. I didn't answer. The next morning, a courier came with proof of delivery. I pictured her at the kitchen table opening the envelope with shaking hands, realizing the house she thought would always be hers had slipped back into mine. I made coffee, poured it slowly, and waited for the storm. It arrived at noon. Brian's voicemail was short and venomous. You think you can take back the house? We'll fight you until you're in the ground. Restore the will, or we'll drag you through court until you break. I forwarded the message to Dana. She replied within a minute. Perfect. Threatening language toward a senior adds to the record. Every attack they launched only strengthened the wall I was building. Then came Lena's text. Please, just me, not him. I need to talk. For a long time, I stared at the message, wondering if it was real or another strategy whispered by her husband. But curiosity won. The next morning, her car pulled into my driveway, alone. She'd been crying. Her makeup was already ruined. Dad, please, she said when I opened the door. Can we just talk? I let her in. She sat on the same couch she'd once sprawled across to watch cartoons as a child. The years between then and now felt cruel. I never wanted it to go this far, she said. The trailer, the police, the court. You were there, I interrupted quietly. You saw him take my keys. You heard him talk about the retirement home. You said nothing. Her eyes fell. I was scared. He pushes until it's easier to agree. Easier than standing up for your father. Tears welled again. I'm sorry. For everything. Be specific. For not defending you. For letting it happen. I took a slow breath. I can stop all of this. The revocation, the insurance changes. You can still have what was meant for you. Her head snapped up. You can... One condition, I said. Leave him. File for divorce. Her face changed disbelief, then anger. You can't ask me that. That's cruel. No, I said. Cruel is letting the man who humiliated your father keep dictating your life. I'm offering you a choice, the same one you gave me when you sided with him. She stood abruptly, tears streaking down her face. "You'll die alone if you keep living like this," maybe I said. But I'll die knowing I didn't let anyone walk over me again. She left without another word. The door clicked shut softly. Outside, her car idled for 5 minutes before reversing down the driveway. I watched until the taillights disappeared. The house was silent again, but not empty. It felt settled. The next morning, Dana called. "The revocation is officially recorded. The house is back in your name and the insurance companies have processed the new beneficiaries. You're legally clear." "What about the restraining order?" "It still stands," she said. "They can't contact you without violating it. If they do, we go to court again." "Understood." "Evan," she said, her tone softening, "you handled this with remarkable restraint. Most people would have gone for blood." "I wasn't trying to destroy them," I said. "Just to protect what's mine." Later that day, a realtor named Grace Nguyen walked through the house with a clipboard. She had the brisk, calm energy of someone used to endings. "Good structure, clean layout," she said. "You've taken care of it." "I always do." She smiled. "We'll have offers fast." By the weekend, the sign was in the yard for sale. I stood on the porch watching her hammer it into the ground. The sound echoed like a closing door. That evening, another voicemail arrived, Brian again, still trying to sound powerful. "You think you're free, you're not. You'll regret this. I didn't even forward it this time. I just deleted it and looked out at the trailer under the fading light. It gleamed like something reborn." A week later, Grace called. "All cash clean offer," she said. "Close in 2 weeks." "Take it," I said. "I'm done with this place." When she hung up, I went to the trailer, unlocked the door, and stepped inside. The air smelled new again, faintly of plastic and desert dust. I sat at the small table, unfolded one map, the Grand Canyon route. For the first time in months, the thought of the open road didn't feel like running away. It felt like arriving where I was supposed to be all along. The phone buzzed on the counter. A single text. "You destroyed your family for money. Hope it was worth it." I stared at it for a moment, then deleted it. Then I opened the camera, took one photo of the trailer against the Arizona sky, and typed a caption. Turns out I did need this after all. I sent it to Lena. No anger, no explanation, just closure. Outside, the sun dropped behind the horizon. Tomorrow I'd drive north Grand Canyon, maybe Monument Valley after that. The road was open, the paperwork complete, and the noise finally quiet. For the first time in years, freedom didn't feel lonely. It felt earned. The sale of the house closed on a Wednesday. I signed the final papers in a sterile title office with a polite clerk who had no idea how much history lived inside the file folder she was notarizing. When she slid the check across the counter, I didn't feel triumph, only silence. 23 years in that house. It had held birthdays, arguments, anniversaries, and every ordinary morning that used to mean family. Now it was just property changing hands. I drove my home for 2 more nights, walked each room once, and said nothing. The walls didn't answer anyway. Then I went outside and stood beside the Horizon Vista, the trailer that had started everything. Its bronze panels reflected the setting sun like fire. It was time. The next morning, I packed methodically the way I'd packed for business trips decades earlier, checklist duplicates, backups. Important papers went in a waterproof folder. Photos of my wife went above the bed. Tools, emergency kits, maps. Everything had its place. The trailer had once been a dream of exploration. Now it was a symbol of survival. The difference, I decided, was that freedom meant earning it twice, once in youth, once in old age. Before leaving, I stopped by Dana's office one last time. She handed me a single envelope. Final confirmation, she said. "The gift deed revocation has been recorded by the county. Life insurance beneficiary changes accepted. The incompetency case is dismissed with prejudice." "In other words," I asked. "In other words, you're untouchable." I smiled for the first time in weeks. That's a word I can live with. She closed the folder and leaned back. "Most people, after what you've been through, would feel angry or vindicated. You just look tired." "I'm not tired," I said. "Just finished." She nodded. "Then go finish properly. You've earned that road." By dawn the next day, Phoenix was shrinking in my rearview mirror. The Horizon Vista hummed steadily along the highway, every mile marker a small erasure of what had come before. The Grand Canyon first, then Monument Valley, maybe Yellowstone if the weather held. No schedule, no one waiting for my arrival or planning my departure. I stopped at a scenic overlook just outside Flagstaff. The sky was wide enough to swallow every memory that it hurt to carry. I brewed coffee on the small stove, drank it standing at the edge, and let the wind pull the bitterness out of me. The phone sat on the counter beside the sink, buzzing once. A message from Lena. I saw the sale listing. Please call me. I didn't. A few hours later, another message arrived. I understand now. I wish I'd spoken up sooner. That one I read twice before deleting it. Regret was still a kind of manipulation when it arrived too late. 2 weeks later, Dana emailed all proceedings closed. You are fully cleared. Bank accounts transferred. No further action required. Underneath one short line that made me pause. Freedom looks good on you. I laughed quietly alone in the trailer parked beside a lake in Sedona. She was right. It did. I opened my camera, took another picture, the horizon framed against red cliffs and blue sky, and saved it. Not for Lena this time. Just for me. At night, I sometimes replayed the story in my head, trying to find the exact moment when love turned into ledger lines. Maybe it was that first phone call when she'd asked how much instead of saying congratulations. Maybe earlier. It didn't matter now. The law had given me protection, but the road gave me something better, peace without permission. A month passed. Then one last letter arrived at the Sedona post office box I'd rented. The return address read Patterson in green. Inside was a single page. Dear Mr. Brooks, please be advised that our clients Lena and Brian Carter are withdrawing all pending motions. They acknowledge the validity of your actions and do not intend further litigation. I folded the letter neatly, slipped it into a drawer, and closed it without ceremony. That was their final surrender paper, impersonal, overdue. In late September, I reached the Grand Canyon. I parked the trailer at a ridge overlook, the same one I'd marked on my map months ago, back when I thought this trip would be a shared adventure. The air was crisp, full of dust and distance. I took out my phone, switched it to airplane mode, and set it on the dashboard. Then I stepped outside and stood at the edge. The canyon stretched before me, layers of earth carved by time, patient and merciless. I understood it better now. What time erodes it also defines. I pulled my camera out again and took a photo, me, the horizon vista, and a sky that didn't care about court filings or family betrayal. The caption came to me easily this time. Freedom isn't revenge. It's the life they can't touch. I didn't send it anywhere. I didn't need to. When the sun began to fall, I started the engine. The road west waited long, open, and silent. I felt the hum of the tires through the steering wheel, the rhythm steady and certain. Somewhere behind me, the people who once called me family were discovering that love without respect has an expiration date. Somewhere ahead, the next sunrise waited. I didn't know where I'd stop next, and for the first time in my life, that was the point. The trailer moved forward, silver and bronze, against the fading light. And I thought not bitterly, not proudly, just clearly. They tried to take everything I had. Instead, they gave me back myself. Thank you for listening to today's stories. If you enjoyed listening, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Also, leave a comment below to share your thoughts on what happened. Take care.